Good morning, everyone. Good morning to the students here in the classroom with me at the Foundation, and good morning to those of you online who are joining us. My name is John, and I'm going to be the host for our class this morning with Guy Finley. Welcome. If you're new here, our classes have two basic parts to it. Guy, in a moment, will give a talk that lasts for about 60 minutes on the topic that I'll read in just a moment and that you can see on the screen below you. We'll take a short break, and then we come back for part two, which is an open discussion about the material Guy's presented, a chance for those of us in the room to share our own thoughts and observations and questions about what Guy presented, and those of you online can also join the conversation as well, and you can send in written questions, you can raise your hand and talk directly to Guy if you're on GoToWebinar, so it's a great opportunity to participate. And participation is really the key to learning something, to make it something that not you just haven't heard, but that you have felt and worked with as well. And so that is always the opportunity we get here. So our class will last up until about 11 o'clock or so, and then we continue the class here live and the discussion live, and you're welcome to stay with us for that as well. Before I read the topic and the key lesson for today, just a reminder to the students in the room, if you have a cell phone, just check and make sure you've turned it off. All right. Here's our topic for this morning. Find the strength you seek within the weakness you fear. And the key lesson reads as follows. When the truth is seen, words, ideas, ambitions, even lofty aspirations are recognized as blindfolds. Why wait to see?
Good morning. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Wherever you are, in whatever part of the world and whatever time it is, I'm glad that you're here. I'd reiterate the key lesson for you. When the truth is seen, words, ideas, ambitions, even lofty aspirations are recognized as blindfolds. Why wait to see? Now, maybe that's cryptic to some of you, so I will help you understand something that may not be evident in the sparse number of words I use to describe an important idea. What was the one thing that was present in the moment when you realized some weakness or limitation, and out of that realization came the awakening of a new possibility and a completely new set of experiences for you as you live? What was the one thing that brought about that realization? I'll leave the question rhetorical. It was in a moment you could see what you hadn't seen before. Pure and simple. Pure and simple. Suddenly I see what I didn't see. I was blind, but I didn't know I was blind. And then my eyes, for some reason or another, are open. And my eyes are open. Suddenly everything's right in front of me, but what's right in front of me is an understanding that was waiting within me that somehow or other I didn't have access to because I couldn't see everything that would bring that about in myself. Some of you are already going to sleep. Give yourself a little shock, please. Why wait to see? I know that you think you want to see, and of course there are parts of you that do want to see. But there are lots and lots of parts that just don't want to see. And if you need any validation of that statement, consider the fact that once again on this planet, wars are raging. And you refuse to see through the conditioning, the unconscionable so-called spiritual and religious attributions that people are putting forth. The world is a better place. Everything's getting better. More people love God. Everything's beautiful. Compassion rules. No, it does not rule. Ignorance rules. And the only reason that we remain ignorant is because there is something in us that we remain on the wrong side of that does not want to see the truth of things. Why is it after thousands and thousands of years, human beings have no more idea what to do with their suffering today than they did thousands of years ago? I'm asking you. Now, there are thousands and thousands of ways that it's buried much more efficiently than ever before. It's hard to bury a pain when you are out milking a cow. But give me my Facebook or my Insta faces, meshes, whatever it is that I do all day. Just give me something. Let me look through my photo. Just give me anything. I'm going places. Used to be if I wanted to go someplace, I had to get on a horse, and that was painful in itself. But now I can just, buy a ticket. I'm gone. I go eat food someplace. Woohoo! Regardless of how many conditions have changed and how capable we are of changing them given our technology, the fact remains that you and I, to whatever extent is true, are still absolute captives of a suffering that we don't understand. And I bring you back, and I'll do it many times today. Why don't I understand something? There were things I didn't understand, and then suddenly I understand. And why do I suddenly understand something I didn't understand before? Because now I can see it. And when I say see it, I'm no longer outside of the conditions in my consciousness that are responsible for the creation of that experience. Now I understand the experience and the creation of it because I've entered into the consciousness responsible for it. Everybody still tracking me? So here we are, 2023, and we're still chasing or running away from whatever it is that we believe is the cause of our pain. My neighbor, whether it's the person next door, the person who parks their car in the wrong place, or the people who worship the wrong God, or the ones who have taken over what I believe is mine and should be mine alone. And you cannot separate the individual skirmish that you have with the people in your own family from the human family fighting against itself, believing somehow or other that if I can put everybody in their place, my suffering will go away. And it's never gone away. It has never gone away. It is exacerbated. How can you know and say it's exacerbated? Because like that, what happens? Violence. Yes or no? Out loud so the people in the world can hear it. Yes. How is that suffering ever going to come to an end? That's what we're looking at. And it's something that you should be interested in. Most of us aren't interested in how we bring an end to our suffering. We don't call it that. We call, how do I start my pleasure today? How do I get through today with the least amount of discomfort? Would that be fair to say? Deep breath, transition. Does any creature invent its own purpose for being? Simple question. Does a blade of grass create the purpose for its being? How about the deer? How about Tammy and Tata and the rest of the gang? How about Frankie, the turkey? Does he invent his own purpose? Or does Frankie, Tata, and the girls and every other creature, including every blade of grass, or does it exist for the sole purpose of fulfilling the reason for its existence? So we can't argue with that, can we? That no matter what the creature is, it didn't come here to design its own purpose. It came here to fulfill a purpose that was part of the reason it was created. You don't have to be an Einstein or a mystic to understand that. Do you? So what's the big lesson here? Let's go slow. When I suffer, what do I suffer from? I suffer from the fact that some idiotic person, some particular moment in time has come along and it is interfering with the purpose of my life. Yes or no? Now, I don't know that I go into the moment thinking the purpose of my life is to have you smile at me. But when suddenly you don't smile at me or you give me something worse than that, suddenly I am filled with what? Resistance. Resistance of an unconscious nature is suffering. And what am I suffering in that moment? The fact that you aren't what I want you to be, or that I have a demand that you be what I need you to be, so that this suffering that sits down underneath everything doesn't come up because you played your part, didn't provoke me, and now everything's fine until you don't do what you're supposed to do. Still with me, everybody? So what's the big picture? Taking in the first 11 minutes of this talk. Things go too quickly here. People say, well, I don't understand why you talk so fast. Because I have so much to tell you. What's the big picture? Here's the big picture. There's a bigger picture that I don't see. That's the big picture. And what's the big picture that I don't see, that we don't see? What's the big picture? That my suffering, whatever it is on a daily basis over what it may be, psychologically speaking, that my suffering cannot be separated from something that comes up in me when the moment doesn't give me what I came into the moment wanting. So that we need a big picture here, which is somehow or other, this suffering that is consistent and mounting on a global, if not personal basis, has something to do with the fact that you, they, this, and them have denied me what I require in order to feel as though my life is in the right place, doing the right thing. Yea or nay? And more importantly, that in that moment, I can't separate the experience of myself from that pain. Let it sink in. I can't separate the experience of myself from this suffering. Isn't that what I'm always trying to do when I have someone or something to blame? Am I not trying to separate the experience of myself from what I need to be the reason for that suffering? Because surely, Frankie, I can't be the reason for the suffering. I can't be the cause of the suffering. That's impossible. I mean, it's so evident, isn't it? I can't be the reason why I'm suffering. I mean, if I was the reason why I'm suffering, if this consciousness was the cause of it, what am I supposed to do with the rest of my life when the basis of my life is the pursuit of everything that I need to free me from you? You being the ubiquitous, unwanted conditions. Yes or no? Transition. So, there seems to be, at the root of this resistance, I hope you follow this, at the root of this resistance, there's some significant difference between my story and the divine story. I try to bring you to see it. My story is what I want, what I need, when I want it, when I need it. And your story is to see that that happens. But my story, that I blame the suffering in it on you, is obviously in contradiction with whatever the broader story is that brings all of us together in this world for purposes that we can't imagine, because we believe the purpose of everyone and everything on this planet is to ensure that we have and what we get we want. So, what I want and what the moment wants. And I suffer when what the moment wants rubs against what I want. Now, one of the bigger problems here is that I don't actually know what I want until I want it. I don't think to myself when I wake up in the morning, I am a basket of endless wants, which, by the way, is mammon. Unanswerable desire. I don't wake up thinking, I am an unanswerable desire. Do you? If you ever know anybody that walks up to you, run. But I must be this unanswerable desire because there's no moment that unfolds quite literally that doesn't rub me the wrong way. I'm not even with anybody and I'm rubbed the wrong. Do you ever rub yourself the wrong way? It's crazy. So there's what I want and need, and apparently it stands in the way of what something that is timelessly trying to reconcile all of creation. You know, sorry, don't mean to interrupt you, God, but can you just let this one particular thing that you need to fix, let it slide today so that I can be free? Because that would really be a groove. Now that sounds ludicrous when I say it, right? Yes, does it? Yes. So what don't I see? I don't even see my story. And I certainly don't see God's story. I see nothing. And yet I think I'm all-seeing. And what's the basis of my all-seeingness? What's the basis of my all-seeingness? Resistance. Because it's not until you do or they do or something comes up that I resist that suddenly I see what's wrong. And I never see myself in that story. I see you as messing with my story. And you would never admit it as true, but I'm trying to get you to this point. Why is God messing with my story? Why can't this moment just cooperate? Am I asking that much? Hello? Why can't I see the story? Why can't I see the story? Now, we're talking about this resistance and this suffering that's built into the fact that there's virtually not a day that goes by with that at least 10 or 15, there's actually like 1,500 immediate reactions born of resistance. Smallest thing. Even the phone can ring. Yes or no? Do you always go, oh, someone's calling me? If you're really lonely, you do. I get it. And I know there's some of us here that can't wait for, when my wife and I first moved up here, we couldn't wait to get away from all the junk mail down in California. And within 2 months, not one piece of mail came, and we'd celebrate when something came from the AAA or whatever it was, the retirement people. Oh, a free meal, let's go. We can be with people. Why don't I know this bigger story? So if I want to understand something, what's the requirement? Let's say you want to understand something, what's the requirement? Let's say John wants to understand how to take the slice off of his ball when he hits it. Still working on it. Still working. What? How? What do I have to do to understand something?
See what he's doing.
Study and practice.
Dana.
We have to see or admit we do not understand in order to understand, to be open to understand.
Okay. Boy, was she affirmative or what? She said we have to see or understand first that we don't understand. And that happens to be very true. I see people all the time, and I'm probably guilty of it myself in certain things. We actually practice imperfection. It's a remarkable thing to go and to insist that what you're doing somehow or other, if you suffer enough doing it, it's going to change the suffering. And the more you do what doesn't work, the more you suffer the frustration born out of believing that you actually know what the heck you're doing, and you don't. So the question is, if I want to understand something, simply put, I got to go into it. End of story. If I want to understand something, I have to go into it. If you want to understand how to prepare a good, healthy meal, you have to go into what a good, healthy meal is. Yes or no? Then you have to go into what it means to cook it properly. And then I'll go further. Then you actually even need to know what it means to eat it properly. But that's another story. So if I want to understand, let's say, the ocean, how do I understand the ocean? Reading books? Hello? Praying to the ocean? Oh, mighty ocean. I love you. Take me with you. Does that get me? Do I understand the ocean? What if I become like a philosopher of oceanic things? Does that do anything? What do I have to do if I want to understand the ocean, really understand it? I got to go into it. There's no two ways about it. I have to go into it. Now, make the transition with me. If I want to understand the character of this resistance and its attending suffering, then I am going to have to go into that character deliberately. Suddenly, a lot of smiles fell off of people's faces here in the room. You have to enter into it. Now, here's the extraordinary thing. As far as I know, we are the only creature. Now, I'm not discounting whales or dolphins or elephants. I am discounting turkeys. No way they'll ever understand anything. If you want to understand something, you have to go into it. And we as human beings, as far as I know, are the only ones with the capacity to become aware of a quality or character in our own consciousness. No other creature can do that, because no other creature has another order of awareness outside of their simple consciousness. Simple consciousness is awareness of an object. That's what simple consciousness, simple awareness, brings about, an awareness of something other than myself. Simple awareness, simple consciousness, other than myself. Frankie knows I'm not his brother. I'm trying to become it. But I, on the other hand, can be aware of the consciousness of another creature. I can be aware of my own consciousness. That's an immense thing. Mechanical, sleeping human beings are not and have no awareness of their own consciousness. What we call awareness of our own consciousness is thinking about what we did after we did it. That is not awareness of our consciousness. That is actually unawareness of our consciousness, which is forever explaining what it did so it can feel like it did that on purpose. We can realize something of the cause of these characters, something of the reason behind it. And as we can grow in this awareness of this, now slow, I'm keep putting everything back in. How do I grow in the awareness of anything? How do I grow in the awareness of anything? I go into it. I have the capacity to go into it, to understand it. And as I understand something, what happens? As I understand something, what I didn't understand before now becomes a part of what I can see is true, so that there's an integration of that character with something that was formerly in conflict with it. Are you not in conflict with your own suffering? I don't want this suffering. Leave me alone, problem, person. I want nothing to do with this pain. So I know nothing about my own suffering other than I immediately don't want it. That's really all I know. And then out of not wanting it comes what? What I want in order to transcend this pain. But one of the lessons is that I've given myself a gazillion wants, and not one of them has brought an end to the innate state of suffering that appears unannounced whenever a moment goes against whatever it is that I expect from it. Yes or no? So in order to enter into this, it requires that I begin to understand what it means to accept it. And in the acceptance is the new awareness and the eventual integration of that consciousness that is presently unconscious to what it does to itself. Yes or no? Yes. Listen to this. I found this Fenelon, 17th century. Actually, he was an archbishop, but an unusual man, quite awake. Listen to what he wrote. Weakness is very painful. We can use the word weakness for suffering, can't we? Weakness is very painful, but also very useful. While any self-love remains, you are afraid it will be discovered. As long as the least bit of self-love remains in the secret parts of your heart, God will hunt it down and by some infinitely merciful blow, force your selfishness and jealousy out of hiding. The poison then becomes the cure. We've heard that, haven't we? Self-love exposed to the light sees itself in horror. The flattering lifelong illusions you have held of yourself are forced to die. God lets you see who you really worship, yourself. Weakness is very painful, but also very useful. Now let's go back in time to St. Paul, who said something quite cryptic. He was talking about having been transported to a certain level of understanding, of suddenly awakening. And he said, Christ said, in thy weakness is my strength made perfect. In thy weakness is my strength made perfect. Now, what is the relationship between this weakness revealed, where suddenly, what is Paul saying? Suddenly it becomes very useful, the revelation of this weakness, of this suffering. And why does it become very useful? Because in my awareness and in the integration of it that takes place in that consciousness, suddenly I realize not only is it not my weakness, but it is a weakness that is in place for the purpose of introducing me to another level of being, which when I enter into it, suddenly I become part of that new I, that new strength. Do you see this with me? Yes. So let's go off of what Fenelon said, and I know probably a lot of people hung up at that point. But that's good. I'm glad they're gone. As long as the least bit of self-love remains in the secret parts of your heart, God will hunt it down. And by some infinitely merciful blow, force your selfishness and jealousy out of hiding? Out of hiding? Take a nice deep breath. I'm going to go nice and slow here. And I would just tell you, and for what it's worth, because I don't hold myself up to be anything special. And I've always told you, don't believe a word I say. I insist upon you being as skeptical of what I tell you is true as you are of the truths that you tell yourself, seeing that they've never really rescued you from this pain. I can tell you with absolute honesty that with no equivocation whatsoever, that the most valuable moments in my life have been and continue to be the moments of the deepest and most unabated suffering. I hadn't intended to bring this in because I will during the December banquet. I've told you there was a time when I was about 12 years old when one of a few, I guess you'd call them mystical or religious experiences, but this one has stayed with me for the entire journey of my life and continues to prove itself and prove itself and prove itself, even though I didn't even begin to understand what it meant. When as a boy I heard very distinctly this voice. It wasn't in my head, it wasn't outside of me, it was everywhere all at once, and it said, "With this pain I give thee life and do thee wed. With this pain I give thee life and do thee wed." I wrote it down after asking it to be repeated, and who'd believe that whatever it was talking would be so kind as to repeat it? With this pain I give thee life. What is pain? What does pain have to do with life or a wedding? what is the whole of your life? Now I know you've got mama and papa and baby bear and grandbaby bears, and you got all this stuff going on. I get it. People on different places, people you love, and things you're going to do, and your experiences. And I get it. Photo albums. I get it. All of that. But I'm asking you to see, not to identify, because that's primarily the love of all those things, is the familiar sense of self that it brings up. I'm asking you to see, if I could strip all of that away, what is it that moves me every day? What is it that picks me up and moves me from here to there, that takes one thought and transfers it to another thought? What is it that I'm doing with the whole of my life, if I'm honest, if I can see it? What do you think it is? I'm going to leave it rhetorical. I'm endlessly juggling, trying to deal with the disparity between what I want and what I don't. That's what I'm doing with my life. I wake up in the morning and I've got all these thoughts, things I got to do, places I got to go, conditions have to be dealt with, and I'm important. I'm a significant human being. God help the human being that thinks they're significant. God help the human being that thinks they're powerful in any way whatsoever, regardless their possessions or the way they're perceived by the world around them. And that's basically what we're trying to do at all points in time, is to get to a place where we have power, possession, authority enough to be seen as something special in this world. And everything that I try to deal with is, how do I get rid of anything interfering with how I want to be seen, and how do I strengthen everything that lets me be seen the way I want to? Yes or no? Is that not the basis of your day? I get it if you have families. But by the way, when a child reaches the age of 18 or 20 years old, out the door they go. You're not here to take care of children until you die. Part of your responsibility as an adult is to see that they learn what it means to stand on their own. And sometimes that means you have to stand on your own instead of enabling them as you do. Side conversation. I'm always trying to deal with a life that I want and I don't want. And what is the basis, incidentally, of everything that I do in moments of wanting or not wanting? What is the basis of it? My experience can't be separated from wanting and not wanting, can it? Isn't the basis of my experience moment to moment based on wanting and not wanting? Now, I know that you're asleep, meaning that you don't know what your thoughts are doing most of the day. You're just kind of like, you're just kind of moving through life, because I got to go here, I got things to do there, and then I'm going to see somebody and we're going to go buy something, then we're going to have some good food, and oh, I didn't like the way they served that, I'm never coming here again. Like that. So I can't see that all of that activity is a dream, and I'm in that dream doing what? Trying to solve whatever the thoughts are that come up that run in contradiction to my expectation of any given moment. So I'm endlessly in a state of trying to reconcile my story to whatever is the story that's challenged it in that moment. Big picture, yay or nay? And what an extraordinary paradox this is. Where do I get, am I going to have enough time? Where do I get all of the sense of my strength from? From where do I derive my sense of, I'm acting it out for you, my sense of strength? Where do I get it from? What I want. And what I don't want. Where are you stronger? When you must have something and know that? Or when something denies you what you must have and know that? Where is that not the basis of the experience of my strength, wanting and not wanting, yes or no? And yet, it's the source of my weakness. Isn't it? Okay, let's go back. Remedial. From whence comes my suffering? From whence comes my suffering? From resistance. From whence comes my resistance? from what I want and don't want. So we cannot separate want, not want, from resistance, from suffering. And yet, I'm suffering because I don't want to suffer. See, I was trying to explain this to a couple of the men yesterday when we were out playing 9 holes. We are so asleep that when a want passes through us, we never see, because we're asleep looking at what the want wants, what it is in us that wants what it does. For us, wants, I shouldn't go into this material, but I'm going. For us, wanting is cause. Is it not? See, wanting is not cause. Wanting is effect. Wanting is the effect of not having or needing or not wanting something else. That's where every want comes from. It doesn't stand by itself. It sits in the shadows all the time, accompanied by its opposite, and the conflict in that. That's why Christ said you can't serve 2 masters. You'll love one and despise the other. Little insight into that. So here's a paradox. My greatest strength, how many of you know sometimes that you can, I'll act it out for you, that something in you will muster up a certain posture, a certain position, a certain facial expression, and a certain very seriousness, because in that moment it is very distinct to you who you are and how things should be, so that you can continue being who you've imagined yourself to be. Do you know that position? And then somebody has the audacity. It's unbelievable, because I'm in my finest hour. I don't know that I'm acting. I have no idea that I am the passive response to something pushing on me, and me pushing back by assuming this posture and position as if I know exactly what's supposed to happen, and then God doesn't get the memo, and everything goes counter to everything that I wanted it to be so I could be me. Do you know those moments? So there is this unbelievable relationship between the fact that I, on one hand, live with all of these desires, and I believe they are cause, because when I am motivated by them, I believe that letting them tell me how to fix myself is going to get rid of what's broken inside of myself, what isn't complete in myself. Big transition. Take a deep breath, please. Are you ready? God doesn't recognize my desires. Even when I was a boy, I used to be fascinated watching 2 football teams in opposite locker rooms say, God, please bring us this victory. Isn't that what the Palestinians, the Hamas and the Jews and the Russians and the Ukrainians and every other foreign country and body said against every other one? Isn't that exactly what they're wishing? Please give me the victory. God knows nothing about the desire born out of a person trying to avoid suffering. But the beautiful part about the divine is that he allows these desires. That's the extraordinary thing. He doesn't know anything about your individual. I know, sorry to break your heart. Please, God, I want this. But he allows desires. Why does he allow desires? Why does he doesn't know your individual desire. End of story. Because for one thing, the you that has an individual desire based in self-love doesn't even exist outside of a dream, outside of a level of consciousness that literally will disappear when the form that holds it vanishes. So I say, you want to know what the height of narcissism is? God knows me. God sees me. He's going to give me what I want. No, he's going to allow you to have as many wants as you want, so that one day, by and large, you'll be able to finally have a series of shocks that produce a change of mind. That's why God, the divine, allows human beings to have all of these desires so that they can gradually, and it has to be gradually, see that not one of the things they desire is going to free them from a consciousness that only knows itself through desire. It is that impossible path. And I've always said this. What an extraordinary thing that is. That I am permitted as a human being to make every possible transgression that can be made. In fact, if you know anything about the history of certain awakened human beings, and this is true of every human being who is ever awakened, they have awakened from everything that they mistook themselves to be and all the actions that they took through that mistaken identity. We never think to ourselves when we're suffering that we are living from a mistaken identity, do we? No. If anything, the suffering proves that my identity is valid and everything must take its place now to ensure that the world stops making me a victim and I rise to be the victorious human being I imagine myself to be. Awakened. Flowers blooming behind me as I walk. So, are you still? Okay. So I'm allowed as a human being to serve what I want to serve. That's free will. But hidden in that free will is the awareness of the result of what I love. Hidden in it. And how do I know it's hidden in it? Because when I'm busy loving what I want to make myself special to get what I need, the world be damned, all that matters is that I have a little kingdom someplace. In that moment, it never dawns on me that I have not only set myself against myself, I've set myself against the whole scheme of what is divine, which is ultimately that the kingdom of heaven and the kingdom of earth should be united, that the love of heaven should be manifested on the earth, where a man lays down his life for his brother, not tries to take his brother's stuff so he can feel better. And what's behind all of that activity? Have I explained it fairly well so far? Yes. What's behind all of that activity? Everything that we're doing that I've just described to you. The illusion that somehow or other I understand my suffering. If we weren't streaming out to the world, I would just let the room sit silent for 5 minutes. I understand my suffering. I know it. Why can't it be like this? Why does it have to be like that? When in the name of God is he going to finally wake up? What's wrong with this world? Can't you see that the world, the way it is making me suffer? My God, you're not suffering because the way the world is, because if you saw the way the world is, you would immediately stop taking place in the cover-up of that suffering, if you saw it. Self-love, which is inseparable from self-hatred. Inseparable from self-hatred. Only self-love never knows it holds self-hatred because it finds something to hate to prove that it knows what love is. Can you see it? The illusion that we understand our suffering is the real cause of its continuation. The illusion that I understand my suffering is the cause of its continuation. I'll give you an example. Here I am and think nothing is going the way it's supposed to go for me. I have so much responsibility. People are always demanding things of me. I've got tremendous weight to carry on my shoulders. and I'm still in bed? Yes or no? And when I'm feeling all of that, what's my response? That's suffering, isn't it? What's my response to that suffering? Either push it away or pull myself out of my bed and get up and do what I have to do so I can finally get and deal with that suffering and go on to my happy life. Yes or no? And that same illusion that I know what this suffering is about, that I understand it, what does that give rise to? The illusion that I understand my suffering, what does it give rise to? I hinted at it. It's continuation. How is that its continuation? Anybody? Everything I do is predicated on figuring out how to resolve the suffering that I just told myself was caused by you. I mean, why can't the weather cooperate? Why in the name of God is it foggy in an October morning? It's not supposed to get foggy until late November. I'm not kidding. Why does my leg hurt? My leg hurts. It never hurt before. And look at my face. That never hurt either. Now it seems to hurt everybody. Yeah, please, do you see it? So all of my endless activity, the explanations and the justification of my suffering is contained in the fact that I don't want to suffer. But not to mention that humanity has been doing that since the beginning of time. There's so many things I want to bring into this talk, but I'm never going to get to every. If life was the way the idiot, psychotic, hateful, religious, spiritual teachers of today, if it was the way they say it is, which is you're everything, joy belongs to you, just go get it. You deserve abundance, people, because you're so good. They don't make that face, I did. If that's the truth, then why did Christ go through what Christ, why did any true mystic or true spiritual teacher, why did they go through what cannot be called whoopee? Had nothing to do with the pursuit of their own individual powers or possessions, but rather every one of them was the first to say, of myself I have nothing. Please look at, that's not what I want to say of myself, I have nothing. I want to say I have almost everything, and soon I'll have the rest if I just suffer enough. Anybody seeing the contradictions here? We have taken every side imaginable, getting into the closing of this part up. We've taken every side imaginable, please, yes or no, when trying to resolve the pain or suffering in a dark moment. Every side, what does that mean? I've taken the left side. What's the left side? Don't say woke or blah blah blah. The left side, by the way, in the original language, the generals and the people who ran the granaries and all the rest of that were always on the left side of the throne, and the religious, the mystics, and the rest of them were on the right side of the throne. That was alignment. That had something to do. The left side always has to do, I've taken the left side of this suffering. What is that? I fight with it, yes or no? I fight with my suffering, or I try to run from it. Fight or flight is definitely one side of suffering, yeah? How about the right side? I've been very philosophical about this suffering. I've explained it to myself countless times. I've even turned to God. Please God, please God. So that's the right side, yeah? Right side, philosophical, religious, meaning my mind is fashioned on some image or idea that I derive comfort from. Left side, I'm fighting with it or running from it, believing I can overcome it or escape it. I've tried getting above it. Have you not tried getting above your suffering? How do I get above my suffering? I say I'm better than that. Basically, I get above it by judging myself. That's what we call getting above our suffering, judging ourselves. Can you see it or not? The words aren't important. I've been beneath it. Have you ever been beneath your suffering? You won't like this part. What does it mean to be beneath my suffering? That's when I'm my most devious. Most devious. When I'm beneath my suffering. Cunning comes from trying to get underneath the suffering. That's what cunning is. Cunning is suffering, hiding its suffering from itself, isn't it? Is there not suffering in cunning? Why is there suffering in being devious or cunning? Because I am at all points in verse denying the condition. I'm saying I'm smarter than that. Not seeing that all of my smarts are the derivative of the very suffering I'm trying to escape. How smart is that? But there's one side of suffering that in all honesty, it is impossible for a human being to consider until at last there are almost no other alternatives. Not left, not right, not above, not below. What do you think the one side of those moments that we've never considered, what do you think it is? And by the way, again, reiterating, it's impossible for me to consider this that I'm about to describe to you because my reactions, the resistance that comes out of it, reactions are always moving me out, are they not? Always, this is the reason, here's what to do. So everything moves me out. What's the one side of a painful moment that we've never, ever considered to take? I've never ventured inside the suffering of any given moment. I've never gone inside of it. I'm going to say it again. Any moment that seems to deny my desire brings up suffering. I don't know that I am mammon, that I have all of the desire of sleeping humanity living in me, surfacing in its different forms given my culture and conditioning. Doesn't matter what the particular desire is. The fact is that desire belongs to a divided nature that endlessly produces new desires for itself in order to escape the pain of meeting life that says, I'm sorry, not today. I've never not fought with my suffering. Because it's impossible to consider. I know what's going on inside of the minds and hearts of the people here. I have never not resisted a moment that I don't want. In fact, the moment that I don't want is the resistance, isn't it? And so here comes the resistance, and I've never said to myself, I wonder what's inside of this resistance. What's inside? Not how do I get here, not how do I get there, or get rid. What's actually inside this suffering? Did I not make it clear at the start of the talk that we have a unique capacity as human beings to not just become aware of every character and quality that, by the way, made in the image of God, all of these forces and the way they interact, producing all of the conditions they do and the corresponding experience of consciousness. Did I not explain that we have the unique capacity to enter into all of that? Did I not? Now, of course, the question is, isn't it? Well, how do I say? This is assuming that you've come far enough with me to realize, you know what? That's all I've ever done my whole life. I run into moments I don't want, and all I know how to do is to not want what I don't want. That's all I know, not want what I want. And out of not wanting what I want, a new want that then proves to me for a moment that I've escaped the suffering. But did I escape the suffering, or is the new want the continuation of the suffering, because the new want will be resistant again, won't it? Doesn't it? Has it ever come to an end? It can't in this world. But there is a world where it's already resolved. That's the beauty of it. And that's why by Fenelon said that God will hunt God will hunt down that character. How does God hunt down? Now he was a writer. Writers use language, right? Plus that was the translation in French. God only knows what the real meaning was. How does God hunt down these desires? Tell him I'm working really hard. How does God hunt him down? By a series of endless shocks. Where over and over, and I'm going to be very dramatic, where over and over and over, do it with me, over and over and over again, I come to the same place. And over and over and over again, I want nothing to do with it, and I can't for the life of me believe in the smallest way that the intensity of that suffering is somehow born out of me being complicit with an unconscious nature that has dedicated itself to the creation of that very moment that I'm trying to escape, instead of realizing that God has hunted me down in that moment and will bring about a reconciliation that I can't even begin to dream of, when at last I no longer rely on my weakness to tell me where strength is found. Five words. I wonder if any of you will work at this. What are we talking about? We're saying, I'm going to have to go inside of this, aren't I? How do I go inside of this? Show me your true nature. Show me your true nature. When was the last time in the midst of your suffering you sat there long enough to realize that this is untenable? I have been tormented in this similar way so many times I can't count. And here I am again. What is it I don't see? What is it I don't see? That would be different, wouldn't it? What is it I don't see? Now, bringing this to a close, how do I see what I have been unable to see all along? How do I inwardly, and by the way, somebody asked me in Insight Timer yesterday, do you just tell that nature to shut up? No, you don't. No, that's fighting. What is it I don't see? Show me your true nature. And if you ever get to the place where you are willing, because you have been brought there by the grace of God, to that moment where you cannot for a split second believe one more time in your own explanations, when you reach that point, you'll understand what it means to suffer in silence. To take no consolation whatsoever of any form of self-talk, no self-pity, or any other form of judgment. Suffer in silence. What does that mean? Why am I full of dialogue while I'm suffering? Please, do you understand? Are you not? Why am I so full of things in the midst of my suffering? Because that consciousness is trying to extricate you from the possibility of entering into it purely. Seeing it purely. To see the suffering purely, listen, is to see the source of the suffering. Suffering doesn't exist without the resistance that produces it. Resistance doesn't exist without demand, want and not want, that attends with me everywhere. So in one moment of seeing everything that is there all at time is right in front of my eyes. And when it's right in front of my eyes, I can no longer justify myself. I have no more excuses. I have no way. The last thing we want. What do you think the last thing that you want in any moment of suffering is? Please understand, I'm being as encouraging as I can be. What do you think the last thing that you want in any moment of suffering is? Anybody want to guess? There's no way out. There's no way out. And God, don't you do it to yourself. You call on your image of God to rescue you from the moment you don't want to be in. If you really love God, you will let him show you there's only one moment for you to be in, and it's the one that he has given you right on the spot. There's no way out. And in that moment, as you begin, and I'm describing now what real voluntary or conscious suffering is, this is what conscious suffering is, you realize the impossible. I would never be sitting when all of this reaches this culminating point, and resistance will always rise to its maximum point. And when it rises to its maximum point and the suffering born out of you pushing that away reaches its maximum point, right there, the sun breaks. Right there, you are no longer this side or that side. You're no longer want or not want. You are seeing, the all-seeing eye. You are first and foremost present to a peace, listen, that you would not have known existed if you hadn't been shown the futility of serving your suffering and deciding to serve something else in that moment, which is your wish to enter into that consciousness, that you might become a conscious participant in what? In the reconciliation of all that is moving in with all that is moved into that moment between heaven and earth. Don't give resistance a voice. Don't give it a voice. How many of you complain a lot? It's almost incessant, really, isn't it? What is complaint? Complaint is a way out of the suffering born out of desire. That's what complaint is. Complaint is you trying to escape the very thing that you produced through your desire. Now you say, well, I didn't desire that person, I'm getting ahead of questions that are coming in. I didn't desire that person to talk to me that way. You're right. You desire that they don't talk to you that way. I mean, it's not Einsteinian here. There's another will. And it's underneath all of this activity of this surreptitious self and its desires. Another order, another will entirely. And it allows. It is the mercy of God, the mercy of the divine intelligence, the mercy of the Buddha, I don't care what you call it. It is the mercy of that intelligence that allows a human being to act as stupidly as they can. Because there's no other way that you will know that what you call stupendous is stupid. You'll never know it until you're sitting there in these moments, and they will always be coming, where there you are and everything in you feels like it wants to scream and have a tantrum and go through all of the stuff that you're looking around to make sure you don't even want to see yourself like that. Show me your true nature. I'm not running from you anymore. I'm not running from you anymore. Taking thought in the midst of suffering is running from suffering that thought produced. You have to see that. And then you do the one thing that you would have never believed was true, and that you were led to by something that you thought was killing you, to the moment where, in this moment, with this pain, you are wed. You are. You're wed. You and this intelligence, the Christ, the Godhead, whatever, you are wed in that moment to this intelligence that allowed you to go through all of these machinations so that at last you could see the only problem is I live from this incessant self-love. And how absolutely futile it is. And when it seemed to be absolutely futile, you are in part free from that point on to never again identify as deeply as you do with what I want, all of my plans, where I'm going, what I've got, what's going to happen. All of that begins to vaporize as it's intended, like shadows in sunlight, because now you have entered into the true light that lets you see what you are invited to see if you'd only be willing to do so. Let's take a break, come back and have our dialogue.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to part 2 of class. My name is Kate. Hi, everyone in the room. Hi, everyone out there online. I wanted to step in really quick and give an announcement about a special, what would you call it? A special feature that we have here at Life of Learning Foundation, and it's an online wisdom school. So many of you know about our online wisdom school, but in case you don't, I wanted to mention this to you. We actually take all of Guy's talks, all of his materials, his interviews, his talks, his interviews, our study groups, all of his writings, and we put it all up online on our website at guyfinley.org. And there's so much free material up there. You can go and explore anytime. Go into the search box and search on any topic, and it will take you to a place where you have lots of content that you can browse through and just go deeper into this work. But the Wisdom School itself you can actually also get a monthly subscription to go even deeper into deeper levels of the school. And there are 3 levels: basic, premium, and all access. And it's a nice way if you really are wanting to, if you're a sincere aspirant, and you're wanting to, like I said, go deeper with your work. This is a way to kind of keep it in your life on a daily basis, and very inexpensive as well. If you're already a Wisdom School member, I want to make sure you know about a special e-course we have up there that is available to our basic members on up, and it's called The Keys to Self-Realization. It's 10 talks that Guy gave off-site many years ago at Omega Institute, actually. And we put all of those talks online because they're just such a great introduction to this work. So many people ask, how do I do this? And that series of talks in particular is a really great series in terms of, just so much that you can work with, get your hands, in, and work with. And we put together, over the years actually, we put together a study guide that goes along with this e-course, and we only just got it up on the website recently. But it's got, for each of the 10 talks, it has a little one-pager that sort of summarizes, all of the key points from the talk and the exercises. It's very specific. It gives even definitions of, a lot of times people ask for, what does it mean, to come back to myself? Or what is a divided mind? And we actually, collected all that and kind of put it in these study guides. So you may not know that is now part of the e-course, and so I encourage you to go check it out. And if you are not a member and want to become one, you would be able to go in easily. Just go to guyfinley.org/wisdom, guyfinley.org/wisdom, and that takes you right to the page where you can learn more about the Wisdom School and get signed up. And you can learn about what you get with the different levels of membership as well. So just wanted to make sure you know that, and I'm going to turn it now over to John.
Thank you, Kate. I'm here. Before we get started, I just want to share a couple of other brief announcements before we move to our discussion with Guy. First of all, again, the Wisdom School, I can't second it as well, as a great resource for us all. And part of another resource that's connected to that is we even have a special page on Facebook in which members of the Wisdom School share impressions, share ideas, and talk with each other about what we learn here too. So again, I invite you all to join our online Wisdom School. But my brief announcements are a reminder that these classes are sponsored by the Life of Learning Foundation, and we are a nonprofit organization. So again, if you are willing and able to help us in this mission, do consider going to our website at the link that you see there and the link that Eric has usually puts into the chat box, guyfinley.org/donate. And again, we thank you for your support. And again, I'd like to mention that there are also included on that page many ways in which you can help us that also don't cost you a dime. So do explore that if you're willing to help us, and thank you. Secondly, we always invite you to join us here at the Foundation. There is nothing better than being close here, live, and listening to a talk of Guy's live. He speaks twice a week on Sundays and Wednesdays, and then weekends. We are usually around here working around the grounds, and so we've started to kind of talk about what we call our work party Saturdays. And the next one is going to be at the end of this month, October 28th. So if you're in the area, come join us here. We work around the grounds, inside and out, and then have a nice lunch and an informal discussion with Guy. So even if you can't join us here, do kind of make a note on your calendar to join us for the informal discussion, which is at 1:30 p.m. and we usually air that on Facebook and YouTube as well. So just want you to stay connected with us as often as you can. So with that said, let's go back to the room and to Guy and see if he is ready to begin our discussion.
Yes.
Ready to go. All right, Guy. We have several written questions in, so I'm going to start with a couple that are left over from our last class, and then we'll go to our cues. Here is the first leftover question. It came in from Billy last week. Billy said, how do you deal with a jealous girlfriend who doesn't believe you are not playing up, but just enjoying other people's company who happen to be female? No matter what's said to alleviate her suffering, she manages to twist what I say to match her suspicions, and it pushes my buttons, unfortunately. Maybe I'm better off without this drama.
Maybe you are. I've said this in so many different ways, I'll just repeat it, Billy. Goes along quite well with what I spoke of today. There's only one thing that troubles me about any other human being on this planet, and that's what I want from them. If I didn't want her to be what I need her to be, so I can be myself in that relationship as I imagine the relationship to be, where's the problem? If you love this person, you should try to help them understand. And it's strong medicine, Billy, but I'll say it. It's kind of cool to have somebody jealous. Feed off of that resistance that I have. I don't know if you can follow all this. What feeds off of resistance? What feeds off of, I'm resisting this situation. And I resist it all the time. In fact, the resistance mounts. What feeds on resistance? Some form of identity that is derived from it. That's what feeds on it. Yes? Yes. I've been in that position, Billy. First love I ever had. And after it turned out that indeed I was a fool, meaning that she had decided that there was a better catch in the ocean. Imagine that. I virtually never went out again without watching to see if my next girlfriend's eyes were wandering. Did it matter whether they were wandering? Did it matter whether they were wandering or not? Did it? No. Why didn't it? Because there I was, suffering, and believing my suffering was the reason that this person was the cause of my suffering. You know, I don't know if you'll make this connection. I have to do it anyway. When every blue moon, Kate comes up and announces the wisdom school, or Ellen does, whatever it is, and they say it's very inexpensive, I hear in my head, oh, here it comes. Here's the catch. What's your inexpensive wisdom school? Probably like all the other inexpensive wisdom schools. You know, $35 an hour. And that's probably cheap in today's methods. No, our wisdom school is less than one cup of coffee, which, by the way, costs you an insurance card and your and your proof of identity and everything. You can join our wisdom school for $4.95 a month. You know why our wisdom school is so inexpensive? Anybody want to venture a guess why? Because the founder of this wisdom school doesn't want one thing from any of you. That's why. Not one thing. Not one thing. And do you know when you're a free human being, in the truest sense of the word? When you want not one thing from any human being that you know, including from the world that you wander through, not want one thing, then you're free. Now, how in the name of God can a nature that only knows to wish my girlfriend weren't like this or that I wasn't like that, how in the world can that nature ever reach that point where they want not one thing from any other human being? How do you think that's possible? When at last you understand there's not one thing that any human being can give you that's going to change your life. Not one thing. When you realize the world could shower you with praise, powers, and possessions. It could shower you with it. And you're still an empty, broken human being. That's when at last you finally begin to shed that idea that somehow or other what someone else is doing or not doing has an influence on the way you feel, on the importance of your life. You want to be a free human being? Stop investing yourself in the opinions of others. Stop investing yourself in your own beliefs. Dare to be without them, which is what suffering is. And then you'll understand how that suffering will always find something to suffer over. It's a miracle, really, in a way. Suffering will always find something to suffer over. And the light will always show you the uselessness of the suffering. So which side of that do you want to be on? I'll leave it to you. Over to you, John.
All right, Guy, I'm going to go next to one more leftover question that we had, and then we have a number of hands in the queue.
If it's a leftover question, I don't want it. I want to go on the hands in the queue.
All right, Guy, then we will go next to Fiona. She was the first one in our queue. So, hello, Fiona. You're unmuted.
Hi, John. Hello, Guy.
Fiona, I've been waiting to hear from you. You know why?
Why? Why?
Get ready. Some years ago, they did one of those 24/7 genealogy things, and mine came back pretty generic. And then they did an update, and guess what, Fiona?
Oh, you are Scottish.
10% or more.
Oh, fantastic. That's the best news.
It is the best news.
I'm so happy for you. That's really, really good.
I'm validated. I'm validated. Validated.
Oh, you can come over officially now to
Yes,
Scotland since
yes.
you're a Scot.
And I'll be more appreciated there than I am here. I know that's a fact. Okay.
Well, talking about relationships, like you just were, and in that talk you were talking about, you know, how the pain comes round again, and when I have my mother, who is getting older now and needing me to be around, she really wants me to be there to help and support and stuff.
Yeah.
And because of prejudices that have gone on by in the past, you know, financially, I've missed out on lots of things because I'm female, all these silly, you know, ridiculous kind of things that have gone on. It gives me so much pain that, and I know it's for a reason. I'm obviously wanting something. I'm obviously wanting some kind of validation or something, I don't know, but I find it very difficult to just not To be there for my mother, not out of loyalty, but just to be there for her as a person that wants support, but at the same time be cut out of so much where I need to work harder financially. I need to, it's hard. It's hard to watch.
Of course it is. We don't think it much of a blessing, this idea that God will hunt down our self-love and reveal it to us. Especially when I'm in the process of feeling as if life is preying on me. Something's chasing me. I can't get rid of the pursuit of this particular problem or the pain that I have over it. I don't know what to do with it. And I'll add here ever so quickly that you're in a position, Fiona, as is every man or woman who understands what we talk about here. If the true teachings were for the mass of humanity, then the mass of humanity would embrace them. And the mass of humanity hates anything that challenges the idea of self-love. So these teachings are for those for whom have reached a point in their life where they realize there's some relationship between the amount of suffering that I go through and the extent of this unseen self-love, of my demands, of my insistence, of just my constant daydreaming how things should go. You don't know when you are daydreaming about how things should go that it is an act of self-love, because that consciousness is creating a kingdom in its own image, and it loves the kingdom it creates until it hates that which interferes with it and believes that that which interferes with the kingdom that it has imagined is evil. When the most kind thing in the world that can happen to a human being, Fiona, is to reach a point where I don't know what to do with this suffering. I've fought with it, I've thought through it, I've justified it, I've gone back in the past, I've found the social economic conditions that justify the conflict I'm in, I've done all of that, none of it does anything. Nothing does it do. And then at last I'm bare. Then at last I am naked. I'm free of the clutter of my conditioning to that moment. But it runs deep because it's not your conditioning. Yes, you have individualized it, but it is not your conditioning. It is the conditioning of an unconsciousness, of a nature that has given birth and form to the world, that the very nature that's created the conflict then resists the conflict it's created and comes up with new ways to get through it. And you see all that, and it happens. This is the real dark night of the soul. In levels and scale, the real dark night of the soul. I am powerless. I don't know. I can't do anything. All there is the crucifixion. That's all there is. That's a real moment in scale. And in that moment, there is the cry. And in that moment, there is the appearance. That's what's so extraordinary. Only in that moment when something dies do you realize that something eternal has always lived inside of you, trying to bring you to that point. And that's the best that I can describe that, Fiona. I'll be seeing you shortly. Lucky Charms. I don't know what I'm doing.
All right, Guy. Here is our next written question. It came in from Deborah. Deborah asks, what is the most direct and prompt way to enter into the presence of God and remain there perpetually? Thank you and bless you.
God's presence is perpetual. So the question of how do I enter into it is assuming that somehow or other it's missing. It's never missing. You just don't recognize grace. That's the truth. It's never missing. If God withdrew his will, his attention from this world, you and I would evaporate into a ball of meaningless dust, more meaningless than it is now, if God did that. So we are never without the Word. The Word sustains, the living Word. And if it weren't sustaining, I wouldn't be here sharing this with you, and you wouldn't be interested, because what it's trying to share is in a relationship that we're always in but don't know because we're too busy resisting grace. Be another very unpopular book title, wouldn't it, for me? Stop resisting grace. When you're suffering, do you think it's an act of grace? Well, why did St. Paul and all the saints and mystics through time, why do they think that's in my infirmities? I relish my infirmities, he said, meaning my weakness. Why? Because that's where the strength rests. And if that's true, then what am I missing? And why am I missing it? These are the questions that one must ask themselves. And one would never even think to ask a question like that if they hadn't reached the point where they were tired of answering their own reasons for why they suffer. So if that was a written question from someone who wasn't here today, I hope they listened to the talk so they can put it into context. On we go, John. If there's
All right, God.
more to go. Lots to go? All right, John, pick it up for God's sake.
All right, guy, we have 4 written questions and 4 hands in the queue. We'll go next to Beatrice. Hello, Beatrice.
Yes, hello, Guy, John, and everybody. Guy, I have experienced not resisting pain, especially in 2 different events in my life. Both were birthing processes. One was when my 4 kids were born. The interesting thing is with the very first baby, I took a workshop on how to give birth in a proper way, in an easy way. And that workshop, they taught me not to resist nothing. They said, whatever birthing contractions would bring, just embrace them. And I added to that wise advice. I added, okay, I need also to talk to my baby and love him or her through the birthing process.
Yes, Beatrice.
So there was a communication.
Beatrice, if I might, it is interesting.
Yes, please.
I know it all ties together, but time is of essence on these Sunday mornings. So I beg you, please summarize that so that we can share what it is that you are sharing. Please, Beatrice.
Okay, so to summarize that, during the birthing of my 4 kids, I learned to embrace whatever the birthing contractions would bring.
Yes, okay.
The second experience was when my 14-year-old son died with cancer. It was another birthing experience, and I adopted the same approach, and I was singing and praying while he was transitioning. So in those 2 circumstances, I embraced pain, and it became a sweet moment. It was paradoxical. The most extreme pain and the most amazing joy.
Yes.
And I am still learning from those lessons. It's like an echo that repeats every day in my life.
Yes, well said, Beatrice, and it's true. And let us do the best that we can to persist with our wish to explore, to not go left, right, up or down, but inside, so that by going inside, by bringing our awareness into the whole of these moments of resistance, we can begin to see with greater clarity the reason for them. Seeing the reason for them is the same as rising above the consciousness that before was always in conflict with its own conclusions. I'm glad, Beatrice. Thank you for sharing. On we go, John.
All right, Guy, we'll go next to Lucy in the queue. Hello, Lucy.
Hello, Guy. Hello, everyone. I made it back to Canada, so thanks a lot for the wonderful visit there at the Life of Learning Foundation. I really appreciated how friendly and welcoming everybody was, and for other online people, I'd say do the same. It was a great experience. So thanks again.
Yes, you're welcome, Lucy.
And one question I have, Guy, is this morning, as I was getting ready, I realized I've got this situation in my life where it's almost like a repeat of something that happened to me about 25 years ago. And it was like I was thinking, it's like, there must be a lesson in it. And, if it's come around again, there must be more to learn or whatever. Is that what you're talking about? Is like going into that then? Like instead of trying to fix it, more looking at it as,
look,
how to go into this problem.
Here I am. It's not exactly the same. It's a different person. I'm in a different place. I'm a different person. I've had some lessons, but here it is again. We don't want to intellectualize this reoccurrence. We just want to see it. I want to recognize it. Because if it's coming back with increased suffering or a suffering of a slightly different ilk, but I can tell it's sounding certain notes that are a lot like those other notes, then in that vibration, in that experience, I recognize there's more for me to see here. And so my attitude must be in those moments, Lucy, let me see, ask it. What aren't I seeing here? And the critical thing when you ask what aren't I seeing is to not talk to yourself after you ask that. Because that's what happens. What aren't I seeing? Well, this is sort of like the echo of Brigadoon or whatever it is, where I'm listening to this person. They have this proclivity to go on and on and on. And I don't know exactly what to do with it other than to be perturbed. A little inside humor between myself and a student. But the point being, let me do what you are suggesting you see you should do. Let me enter into it. Show me your true nature, and then get quiet. And it doesn't matter. This is the thing. See, it doesn't, when you say, I was going to tell you a story based on that, show me your true nature, where a knight was dealing with something and his apprentice heard him say that and the evil thing disappeared. And then the apprentice, thinking he's all that, goes and he tries to meet the same shadow, and he winds up being turned into toast or whatever happens to him. And he comes back and says, I did what you said. I said to it, show me everything there is I need to see about you. And then good knight says, yeah, you did, but then you closed your eyes. And I got the story in. So keep your eyes open, Lucy. Okay? On we go, John.
All right, on we go, Guy. We have 2 hands in the queue and 4 written questions. Just letting you know that, and we're about at 10 after. What would you like to do?
Not talk to you?
All right, we'll go to the queue then, Guy. We'll go next to Mara in the queue. Hello, Mara. You're unmuted.
Hi, I'm unmuted. Great. Guy, I have to say your accent was far more Irish than Scottish.
Oh, darn it. That's all I got.
You got caught.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm calling from Ireland. So, culture, as we say here in Ireland.
I love Ireland.
What's that?
I love Ireland too. I was there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so on we go.
On we go. Okay, so next time you come, please let me know. Gosh, you know, like you, like most people, the suffering has been the biggest gift. I don't know where I would be without my suffering. I think I would be so blind and so, you know, it has been a gift. And there's been so much. And I see how self-created that suffering has been. So the gift is there. And the looking and the going into it, I've known is the only way.
Yes.
God, it gets tiring to go into it all the time. So it's like there seems to be an unending well of complexities and self-interest and self-love and resistance, and it never ends, Guy. It's I wonder, and this is another kind of drama, when will I get to the end of it? And I know it takes full stopping, but when will the true nature, what does it take? Because God knows I'm there, you know.
Okay.
When will the true nature come forth? When does it stop? How does it stop? What does it take?
I got it. I realize how this will sound. In the moment of the pain, of the resistance, of the upwelling of tension or anxiety or enmity, if there's one part of you that wants it to end, it won't. If there's one part of you that's looking to get something out of sitting there the way you are told that you think you should, if you're looking for a reward, you won't receive it. The whole thing about that moment is essentially the collapse of a time nature. Because time is the difference between what I want and how long it takes to get it, or what I don't want and how long it takes to escape it. And when at last I realize there is no escape that nature, then that nature is suddenly without time. It's just there in the hands of that which brought it there, that it couldn't bring itself to. Then you discover something of eternity that you would never know as a time creature, because the time creature is always trying to escape the time it creates for itself. And then everything stops. Then you're transported, quite literally, into a completely different relationship with yourself and with the moment. And when you understand that, and if you ever get really to that point, you're not trying to do anything. The whole point is you're done trying. That's the whole point. You're done trying. I'm here because I keep trying. I keep trying to be enlightened. I keep trying to know the right thing to do. And then one day you'll understand this mind, whatever it comes up with, will never know the right thing to do. The right thing to do is see the mind doesn't know the right thing to do. Then it's quiet. Then you're in the right place receiving the grace that waits for you there. That's the best I can answer that. On we go, John.
All right, Guy. No more hands in the queue. I have 5 written questions, so we can work through as many of them as you'd like. Here is the next one. It comes from Carl. Carl says, "Hi, Guy. I'm at a crossroads. I had my bodybuilding competition last night and wanted to jump on here as soon as I could to ask you this question relating to joy and visualization. I won the show out of 12 great athletes and was experiencing extreme joy. But as you said, this sort of material joy is temporary. It's not lasting fulfillment, but it seems so natural and pure. I was fully present in the moment the whole time. It was a beautiful moment, but the sport I'm in can be very vain and superficial with not 1 ounce of the spiritual side whatsoever. Also, this sport requires a lot of visualization."
I got it.
Okay. Okay.
He's asking the same question that he's asked before, which is what we always do, isn't it? How do I reconcile my love of being worshiped and worshiping myself with the idea that I know that's antithetical to the worship of God, and having God in my life. Now, you may not think of yourself as bodybuilders out there, and rightfully so. But you are builders of self-worship. Every image, every idea, every plan, every aspiration. But are we saying throw that out? No. You can't anyway. What we are saying is that you have these desires. God lets you have these desires of loving yourself. I mean, when you really boil it down, who's cooler than you are? Come on, be honest. No, I'm serious. Who's more savoir-faire and dignified and intelligent and strong and wise? Who? I don't know. It may be one other person, okay? I'll go that far. How do you teach a person to be willing to get to the point where they see that all of their points in life are meaningless relative to their wish to know God? Tough road to hoe, isn't it? Tough road to hoe. And our bodybuilder here must be pretty good at what he does, yeah? Then why isn't he just jubilant? He won. Why aren't you just jubilant? Because there's a fly in the ointment. There's a contradiction in that consciousness. Explore it. I've said this to you before. We can't wait to see you in the Mr. Universe contest. Not that I would ever watch that, but people do. Win it. Win it so in that moment you can see that all that you're holding up in the air does nothing to hold you up. Then you'll have had the experience that nobody else. See, the real spirituality says, for all intents and purposes, don't be mediocre. Be the most superlative human being you can be. Spare nothing, with God as my witness. Give everything to what you love. Everything. So that in the end, when you've given everything to what you love, you see, I still don't know anything about love. And that my love, even if it remained with me through my years, when I'm on my deathbed, do you think that trophy is going to mean anything to you? God help you if you do. But can I expire? You say the word, expire. Can I expire this? Can the consciousness that pursues what it imagines will validate it, can that consciousness expire itself? So if it can't expire itself, how does it become expired? Because God hunts down the heart that loves itself. And one day, and come on up, Katie, I would just say this one thing. I don't want you ever to mistake this. I'm not saying that in that moment where you are experiencing suffering to the greatest extent that you're possible, that you're going, thank you, thank you, thank you. That's ludicrous. You are sitting there in the throes of the greatest force of resistance you have ever known and meeting it with the greatest understanding you can about the nature of that resistance. And when these two things are brought together as only a third party can see to, something else takes place and is born out of it. And then you know the reward, because you didn't seek it through trying to save yourself. You sought what you had to seek in that moment, which is, this is all there is. Katie.
My name is Kate, and I was thinking of this as Guy was answering that question. So a lot of you know maybe that I'm the one who's sitting in the back end and gathers all these questions together and kind of tries to clean them up and send them on to the host, so that it can be read to Guy. And I love all these questions that come in. I mean, because all of us have the same questions, really, but I had this strong impression that they're all the same.
Yes.
Every question can be answered exactly the same way that Guy just answered this question just now. And really what it boils down to is, I've got my will, and there's thy will, and I somehow think they're supposed to coexist. You know, I somehow think that I'm trying really hard to bring them into a place where both are okay, and that's not it. There has to be a complete letting go of Kate. There has to be a complete, just not even kicking her aside, but just turning away from her and turning to something else, you know, that is in perfect order, that's already there, and then my life is brought into perfect order with it. And that's just,
Yes.
you don't want to do it.
And then what you will. But it'll never be out of line because it won't be in conflict with the greater reconciling intelligence all the time working to bring about exactly that relationship between heaven and earth. Yeah. Come on up, Doug. Isn't it nice? How many people do you think actually can understand anything that goes on here? Not many. And yet you can see all around the world and in this room, there is something that is being given birth, isn't that? It's pretty extraordinary. And it's obviously not just one person's view. As Kate said, this thing is ubiquitous.
Mm-hmm. I am Doug, and I'm ubiquitous. There's so much. From yesterday to today, Guy talked yesterday about, graduate from the School of Hard Knocks, something like that.
Yeah.
This was just, as you said, a little bit deeper. And I was shown something yesterday so clearly in the moment to how to react, how to deal with it, and it's about impatience. There is so much in impatience, or we can put it the other way, there's so much in patience. But I think it actually, like you said, I don't know, impatience is where I have to start. I don't try to be patient.
Correct.
Because that doesn't work. Because there's no one in here who, I'm 73, has found the answer to being patient in the moment. So just real briefly, I had an incident where I felt like someone was being inconsiderate, and I was waiting. And you know what? When I was waiting, I had no problem. I was just waiting. I found a seat and sat and was just waiting for the other person to finish their business. So anyway, to clarify it, I was fine, but the voices started coming when we came back together and went to the car. And we got to the car, I said, next time when you're waiting for me, remember this time. How was that? How am I doing for a long-time student?
But see...
No, but it was so clear.
Yes.
Yeah, it was so clear, according to the reaction, I wonder who I'm talking about, is that in that moment, as I was walking to the car, everything said, stay here.
Yes.
Stay, like yesterday you were saying, if you want to graduate from the School of Hard Knocks, stay a little bit longer. And it's exactly what Christ said to the disciples when he went off to pray before the crucifixion, was could you just stay a little bit longer? Stay in this moment, stay right here a little longer, don't listen to the voices and go with what they always tell you to do. And I was feeling like, I think I can do this, until I couldn't. But one thing I forgot, and this is what I saw is so key, that is I didn't just ask for help. That was what I needed to do. I needed to see Doug has no will to be patient here and to be the perfect student, but just ask for help. I didn't ask for help. I thought I was kind of on the verge, but in that moment is everything. That's the crucible. That's where everything happens. Like just real quick, every time I open my gate to leave in the morning, I usually just try to get through while the gate's, still opening. And today, just because I've been seeing this, I want to wait till it fully opens and sit there and wait that inordinate amount of time to have to sit there another 12 seconds to have the gate open fully, then I can go through it consciously. And it's like, even though I've, quote, failed in it, I can feel there is a new understanding.
Yes.
Because I think it's in our sleep. Why do we approach things in our sleep? Because we don't yet understand. And to really understand that I cannot do this of myself. Yeah. And that was a lesson. So.
You will never regret the discomfort of being aware of the impatience. Because in the awareness of the impatience is produced an energy that cannot be produced in any other way. And it is that energy, that higher order of awareness, that must include the complete discomfort born out of my insistence that something begins to be born, even though you spoke, you said the thing you would not rather than what you would, or whatever. Even though that took place, out of that came You at the Gate. Doug at the Gate, another best-selling book. And Barbara waiting patiently. All right, you know what? We got to go. It's 11:30. How much? I don't want to know. I will catch up with whatever questions didn't get answered on Wednesday night, and we'll explore some of this even more deeply Wednesday night. We might be talking about purgatory on Wednesday night. Well, isn't it purgatory? Reliving the same thing over and over again, wondering why? It's a good tease for Wednesday. We'll see what happens. Goodbye.